Hey, I'm Josh and this is Expats Everywhere. Join me as we head to sunny Spain and we talk to Sam from Holborn Assets as we compare two of the most popular Golden Visa options in the world. His company has noticed something interesting and they believe that the Spanish Golden Visa will crush the Portuguese Golden Visa in 2024. Let's find out why.
Well, Sam, I'm fascinated to have this conversation, so thanks for coming on. First, let's get some terminology out of the way. What is a Golden Visa?
Right, well, the Golden Visa essentially is, in return for somebody investing some money into a particular country, they will be given the rights, essentially, to be a resident in that particular country.
Okay.
So it's normally done through business, or it's done through other types of investment, or it could be done through property. There's a number of different ways to do it, depending on the country. But as I say, people will get residency of that country, which a lot of people are looking to do.
Okay. And let's do some quick comparisons between what the Spanish Golden Visa will get you and the Portuguese Golden Visa. What are some of the criteria of these two Golden Visas?
Well, the Portuguese Golden Visa has always been a very popular route to residency, and there was a number of reasons for that with regards to Portugal. So last year, property in Portugal, you were able to purchase that for a relatively low amount, and that would give you your Golden Visa. However, last year, the Portuguese government removed that as an option to get a Golden Visa. So property can no longer be a way or a route to residency through the Golden Visa program.
Okay.
However, Spain still remains an option. So in Spain, you can still purchase property, and that's always been the most popular route to get the Golden Visa. So it's kind of shifted a little bit from Portugal over to Spain, and that's one of the primary reasons for that. But essentially, they will both give you residency in the country. It's just going to be what route you choose to do to get that residency.
Are there certain stay requirements?
There are in Portugal's case.
Okay.
So with regards to Portugal, a bit of a strange one there. So essentially, you need to stay 1 week. Wait, it's actually 5 weeks over a 5-year period. So
That's
it's essentially,
it. Okay.
That's all you have to do.
Okay.
So it's essentially 1 week a year, but you don't have to do it 1 week a year. Okay. So it's 5 weeks over a 5-year. And the reason the 5-year is there is with Portugal, you would get your citizenship or your passport in year 6. So to qualify for that, that would be that 1 week stay.
Okay.
However, with Spain, not at all. It's completely and utterly no stay requirements whatsoever. So somebody can actually look to move over to Spain, get the Golden Visa, but actually not actually make that move for, say, another 3 or 4 years. They would still have the residency rights through the Golden Visa program without having to come over.
What are some of the investment opportunities or different types of investments that people can get into to get the different Golden Visas?
Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit more confusing, or it can be confusing. So with regards to Spain, if you look at Spain, the most primary route that people will always look at will be property. You know, property as part of an investment portfolio is always a very important part. You know, property tends to go up in prices, as everyone knows. So property tends to be the main route. You can use other routes such as investments into businesses, government bonds, investments into a bank account, but these can be quite a lot of money. So, you know, you're talking in the millions for some of these options.
Okay.
So with regards to Spain, the cheapest way to do that would be 500,000, which is invested into property, and that's the cheapest way of doing it. Now, with regards to Portugal, Portugal used to have an entry point of around 280,000, going back towards the beginning of last year and the year before, which made it very, very popular. However, the Portuguese government removed property partly because they thought it was having an impact on the house price on the market. Yeah. So they've sort of come in and said, well, we're going to remove that. That way it won't be inflating house prices. So if you go down the Portugal route, it's 500,000, but it would have to be into a qualifying investment fund. It can be within a business, but there's certain rules with regards to businesses where it has to employ 10 people over a 3-year period, gets a bit more complicated. Right. And again, you have other routes that you can do, but these become a lot more expensive, and there are certain donations you can make. But they're the main routes that you can do.
Okay. What are the processing times for the different visas? Because I know that Portugal has had some issues where it's taken more than a year to get people processed for their Golden Visa. So what is it like in Portugal now, and then also Spain?
So Portugal, we kind of give people the time limit. It's around 15 months really, for the start of the process, 15 months, and that's when you would get your Golden Visa. So it's quite a long processing time. And as you can imagine, because there was changes last year, it actually forced a lot of people to think, well, I've got to do it now, which they did, which then created more of a backlog.
Yeah.
So then it got worse and worse and worse. So it's a long process in time. So again, that's put a few people off with the Portugal route because of that time. We haven't, it's just going through at the moment. So we don't know this is 100%, but it looks like it will be the case that Portugal has changed one of the rulings around that.
Okay.
So with regards to Portugal, as I say, you needed to be there for 5 years, and then you can change that to citizenship. So you could change that to a Portuguese passport in year 6. But obviously that timing of the 5 years started from getting the Golden Visa. Because the Golden Visa took 15 months, then you're actually talking 6 to 6.5 years,
right,
not the 5 years they were saying. So the government have changed that now, or it's going through in the process of being changed. I don't think it's had much opposition, so it should go through, where that actual 5 years will start from the beginning of that process, essentially.
Okay.
So that will bring down the times of getting the passport, but it still doesn't change the 15 months to getting your Golden Visa.
Okay.
With Spain, it's a lot quicker. So with Spain, from starting a process, or even starting the purchasing process, it's around 3 months before you would effectively get the stamp in your passport that would say that you've got the right to live, to work, to move around. About 3 months. It's actually about 6 months before you physically would get the card, because you'd have to get your TIE number, tax number, you'd have to do your biometrics and things such as that. So that process would tend to be around 6 months. Sort of give or take, depending on someone's situation. So it's a lot quicker. In fact, the Spanish government, the consulate in Spain actually gives a 21-day turnaround time once you've got the application in. So you've got the deeds for the property after, let's say, 2 or 3 months. You put your application in, and they've actually got a 21-day turnaround.
Wow, okay.
But you've got to take into consideration some of the holidays which Spain have, and some slower working hours sometimes, so it can take longer.
21 working days?
Yeah,
that's
what they say, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not including the weekends?
No, so it makes it longer. Yeah.
Okay, because in Portugal it's the same thing.
Yeah.
They'll tell you, and it'll sound like we're talking about like actual calendar weeks.
Yeah.
But it's working days.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yes, yeah.
When you hear like 30 days, well, it's actually 6 weeks.
Yes,
it's not
a lot
1 month.
different. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. But then you've got to look at the process with regards to Spain. It's just so much quicker than really a lot of other programs in terms of getting the Golden Visa.
Okay. But then you have the route to citizenship being a bit longer in Spain.
Correct, yeah.
Or could be, depending on where you're from.
Exactly, and this is the interesting part about Spain. So if I address Portugal first, Portugal's very popular because basically in year 6 you can get a passport, and really your state requirements are relatively low. It is 1 week a year. I mean, it can be
Take
expensive.
a holiday.
So, yeah, take a holiday, exactly. Yeah. It's actually not it's the worst places to go than Portugal for 1 week a year.
100%.
So that obviously is one of the reasons that Portugal is very popular. Now with Spain, it's 10 years, and that's 10 years for, I'd say, the majority of people, but certainly, it would be the majority of people. However, if you've got an ex-Spanish colony passport, okay, and there are quite a few different countries that applies to, you can actually get your citizenship within 2 years.
Okay.
Okay, but you've got to bear in mind that if you're going to change it to citizenship, so change it to that passport, then you have to stay more than 6 months per year in the country to qualify. So you can't just do the no stay requirements.
Got it.
You would have to say that 6 months for that 2 years. However, to get a European passport, a Spanish passport, in as little as 2 years is really a very interesting factor. And even the partners of the people with the passport a year later can potentially apply as well. So that within 3 years they can get their Spanish passport, even if they don't have the ex-Spanish colony passport.
Okay.
So it's a very, very interesting way that it's done there, and it's particularly good. It's a particularly good scheme if people do have them passports.
Okay, because people that are looking to get a second passport,
Yeah.
they have to know that the European passport is one of the top ones in the world. It's top 5.
Well, the Spanish passport, as of this year, is ranked number 2 passport in the world. The second strongest passport.
Where's Portugal at? Do you?
4. Number 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's still a very, very strong passport. Spain is slightly stronger. They're both very strong passports to have, though, which obviously, for anyone looking to do that. And I will say, with regards to people as well, it is important to say this: when people are using a 10-year route to getting the passport, although there's no stay requirements in Spain to have your Golden Visa, if you want to change that and make it into a passport, then you do have to do the last 5 years, stay at least 6 months per year to
Yes.
show that you have that willingness to really want to become part of that country. But
Okay.
Portugal doesn't require that. It's just 1 week for the 5 years.
What are some things that your company has noticed in terms of data and reasons why the Spanish Golden Visa option is going to crush Portugal's in 2024?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we've seen in January alone, it's been about a 6-fold increase in the applications that we've had for the Spanish Golden Visa, which is it's even more than what we were expecting compared to Portugal. Now, the reasons for this, and again, we sort of touched on this before, but the reasons for this really is that Portugal obviously has removed property. So property is always a really popular route for people to do. Okay, now Portugal doesn't have that option. Obviously, people look for alternatives because they want property. Also, Portugal before had NHR, non-habitual residency, very preferential tax regime for people. And that was a reason a lot of people made the move to Portugal. But that was announced towards the later part of last year, that was being removed. It's in a grandfathering period, but that's going to be removed. So again, some of the tax benefits for Portugal are not so much there anymore. So people look at alternatives. And then you think, well, why Spain? First of all, you've got a very strong passport, second strongest passport in the world.
Yeah.
Ex-Spanish colonies, you can get your passport within 2 years. The entry point, we're talking about property, it's 500,000, as we say, that's the minimum amount you need to invest in property. However, there are schemes such as what we have where actually you can do it for as little as 350,000, which is a lot less. And that's done through various mechanisms of, for example, having rental income paid up front on an investment, which gives you your 500,000. It's put together in a way that obviously gives you that qualification for a lower amount.
Okay.
But again, I think that the property reason really is what makes Spain very, very popular, and why, as I say, with the changes in Portugal, it makes it maybe less appealing to what it once was. And as I say before, I think if people are ex-Spanish colony passports, you really can't
Go
do
wrong.
much but within 2 years, or in 2 years, getting a passport for Spain, I think is incredible. And as I say, there are a lot of countries that are on that list.
Okay. Something that we kind of didn't touch on in the previous section was the pricing.
Yeah.
You've alluded to some of the prices, but can you give us a clear indication of what the price points are like for the different investment opportunities?
Yeah, so property, as I say, we're looking at 500,000. So 500,000 is the property price, but you can
In
do
Spain?
it in Spain.
Okay.
But you can do it for as little as, I say, 350,000 if you look for certain schemes that can qualify for a lower amount. When you're looking at things such as government bonds or investing into other types of investments, it could be $1 million or $2 million that you have to invest as well. So it's a lot more money.
Real money.
Real money.
Yeah.
And, again, these are people want to see an investment, a good investment. And as I say, property is the things people prefer. With regards to Portugal, investment funds are an option. The reason that maybe that's been less popular, I think, if anybody sort of following the financial markets over the last 2-3 years even, it's been very, very up and down, and there's been a lot of downs. Obviously, it's picking up more recently, but it does make investment funds can make people maybe a little bit more nervous to that. But you can do 500,000, that can be invested into investment funds. You can do 500,000 potentially into a business, as long as it's a qualifying business and it follows a certain set of rules. Sure. But again, that's a higher entry points that people just prefer not to do, which is your $1 million, $2 million into other types of investments, which, as I say, we see very little of coming in.
Okay, and what are some of the returns that people should expect with these investments? Because some people might just want to buy the passport, but other people actually want to see a rate of return.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the ROIs that we're seeing?
So what we're looking at, you're going to get different types of investments. So again, when you talk about property, so we're looking really at Spain here. When you talk about property, you get residential types of property and you can get commercial property. There's 2 different types of properties you can look at, and both will get you the Golden Visa in Spain. When we look in Spain, and I'll come on to the returns in a second, but when we're looking in Spain particularly, when you look at commercial property, it's from a tax perspective, it can be a lot cheaper, because you've got to always look at buying something in a country can attract lots of taxes. Mm-hmm. Now, with regards to commercial property in Spain, it can be around 40,000 euros cheaper than doing a residential property. So there's lots of investment types where you can do it within commercial, and obviously you can do within residential as well. And when you're looking at returns on a residential investment anywhere, that will, in some respects, it depends what's going to happen in the market. But over a 5-year period or a 10-year period, property will always do incredibly well compared to other types of investments. Yeah. What you should be looking at, as an investment, essentially, is something that gives you the security of knowing after a period of time that you will have a certain amount return.
Yep.
Or you have the potential to make more by selling it on the open market, which is a number of schemes with commercial property that can happen with. So for example, you buy in at a certain amount, you have a guaranteed buyback after a period of time, which you can exercise. But outside of that, you could sell to the open market and make more. So you'd expect to make a good return for your property. Okay. And with regards to Portugal, again, gets a bit more complicated now because we don't have property in there as an option.
Yep.
But there are some really good returns you can get on some funds. So there are some funds, for example, will pay interest up front. So you can maybe invest lower than the 500,000 and have interest paid up front to get you to that level of the 500,000. Or you invest into a traditional fund of 500,000. Again, if you're looking over a 5-6 year period, which you probably would to get your passport, then the returns on fund stocks and shares types of investments you would expect potentially 6-7% per year, but it really does depend on what happens with the market over that period of time.
Okay, so some of these European markets tend to be lower than the American market.
Yeah.
Is that kind of accurate to say?
Yes, most definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So average rate of return 5 to 6 as opposed to maybe that 7 to 8 that we see in the US?
Yeah, absolutely. It would tend to be lower. And again, you want to be making sure, obviously, people investing within funds, obviously people want the Golden Visa. Of course they do. But you don't want the Golden Visa with the worry that you're going to be losing money or worrying, particularly if you want an exit point in 5 to 6 years. You've got to be careful that if the market dips in 5 to 6 years and that's the point you want to take your money out, withdraw, then you could be not in a down position, but not made the money that you want to make. So a lot of people will look at potentially lower risk investments, which will then naturally keep the returns slightly lower than maybe someone that wanted something a bit more exciting, which might not be the best route, certainly if you've only got a 5-year investment window.
Okay. I think it's awfully exciting, waiting that 5 years to get your passport.
But I know.
So I know some people aren't excited about waiting 5 years. They want instant gratification, but I think 5 years is pretty short when you're talking about citizenship. Even 10 years is not bad.
I completely agree.
There are some places that are 20 years that you have. I think maybe Greece is one of those places where you have to live for that long.
You've got certain places that don't do the citizenship route at all. You can't convert it to a passport. So I do think it's. I mean, as I say, Portugal is good with the 5-year, 2-year potentially expat.
Spain,
incredible.
That's great.
But 10 years, I think, is expected, and I think as well when you look at the rule of having to stay there over 6 months for 5 years, it does seem reasonable where people are actually wanting to integrate into that country, become a passport holder. It makes more sense that would be the case, that you'd expect people to do that.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about some of the data that your company is seeing.
Yeah.
I want your personal opinion. Why is Spain going to crush Portugal when it comes to the Golden Visas in 2024?
I think it's because, so I think in terms of why we're getting so much interest in it, it's going to be, as I said before, it's definitely going to be to do with the property option. And people need to be very careful with this because you've got to think, well, what's happened in Portugal is to some degree now happening to Spain. And the property prices in Spain have risen
fast.
There's been some changes in the government in Spain last year. So the eyes have kind of maybe been a little bit off looking at the Golden Visa program, but there's been murmurings over the last year or two that Spain will probably follow Portugal. It's probably going to happen. We just don't know when it's going to happen. That naturally, naturally. So people will think, well, I can do it now because I know I can get property. Yeah. I don't need to stay any time in the country. So if, for example, someone thinks, well, I'm not going to be over to Spain for 3 years. Okay, that's fine because they can actually start doing the process now and not have to stay at all. Yep. And that makes it more and more appealing with Spain.
Got it.
Obviously, Spain's a beautiful place to live. It's a very strong passport as well. That all feeds into it. And the location of Spain in terms of just travelling throughout Europe, which we have so many clients that want the Golden Visa in Spain so that they can travel
around. Freedom of Europe. Freedom,
visa-free travel through the Schengen areas. And then they can reset their 90 and 180-day rules by coming back to Spain, not necessarily Canada, America, or wherever, their sort of home country. So It's going to be very popular for that route. And as I say, I keep mentioning about property, but it is such a big part of this. Property it's where people feel very comfortable in terms of investments. And I think because Portugal doesn't have that now, and because of the changes to NHR, we're just clearly seeing it in the numbers. People are looking over to Spain and thinking, well, that is the option that looks like the best one.
Okay. So whether it is Spain or Portugal and you're interested in learning more about golden visas, I really recommend reaching out to Sam. If you would like us to put you in touch with him, email Kalie at info@expatseverywhere.com and she'll put you in touch with Sam. Sam, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Lovely.
Thanks for joining us. Now, let's get moving. Bye.